Hey, what's up composers? It's Josh, and today I want to go over a new video about Vienna Ensemble Pro 7. It's the latest edition. What is Vienna Ensemble Pro? If you're new to this, if you're not certain what it is, it's basically a host that will load your sounds, your VST instruments, separately away from your DAW. So we're gonna talk about a few things on the website. So let's go here. On the website, I just want to point out that there is a sale going on. It's 145 euros for one license. And then the upgraded version, so if you have it, version 6 already, then it's I think 65 euros. The sale is available through May 3rd, so act fast if you're interested. I hope this video will also give you some reasons to get it. Now let's go to the features. There are some new features here, including single licenses that was not available in the past. You have added effects plugins. Your automation panel is better, has been revamped, and actually will give you the names of everything, which is nice. Interface improvements. Here, notable is your color scheme. You can actually have different colors now. You can also make your instance list vertical, as you can see in that small picture right there. And then your plugin management system is a little bit improved. The improved resource management, there's some things about the copy and paste that is available that was not available before. You can also automate your instance disabling, which is nice. Other things, your connection network settings are better, the faster saving times. One thing here, the articulation display is really nice for the channel view. I'll show you how that would work. And then the last two, the Epic Orchestra 2.0 is very useful for a quick mock-up. You can use a lot of these sounds for a good virtual orchestration. And then the last thing is the VM1 iPad app. That is really cool if you're into technology. You can connect all your server connections through this app. Now what I'm going to do is get out of this and let's get started on how this would work. Now to give you an idea how this would work, I am going to actually load this from scratch. On my right screen here I have Cubase, and on the other screen I have Vienna Ensemble Pro. So all of this is empty. Let's get started on the Cubase side first. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually just build a small template from scratch. Now normally you would load in an instrument track in Cubase, and you would do it all in-house. The reason why we outsource again is so that if you are building huge templates, you can have that loaded all in one go, and you can close out of this session when you're done, open another session, and load the same exact sounds on the other session into here. So let's see. If you're not familiar with the setup, I'm going to show you a quick presentation. I did one on 6, but 7 is it's similar, but I wanted to show you some new things also. So let's go ahead and open up an instance of Vienna Ensemble. So I need to actually find that. It's going to be right here, and there's a lot of different ones. You want to do the one that says Vienna Ensemble Pro with the 3 lines next to it. Okay, it's asking if I want to create a MIDI track associated with that. Yes. And then right now I don't have anything loaded on the other end, so I'm going to leave this empty for now. Let's go to the other side though. And on the other side of the page I have a blank instance of Vienna Ensemble. So let's go ahead and open up an instance here. And each of these tabs are instances. You can actually make these vertical now, from what I understand. You can switch the instances list orientation, so now they're vertical, which is pretty handy. I'm going to switch it back to its original layout. That's just what I'm used to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a plugin. So at first, when you install this program, you might have to go here to the preferences and go to the plugins page. And make sure that your folders are pointing to the right VSTs so that all of your VSTs like contact stuff and your play or opus player or sign player, any of that, all of that should be pointed inside of these folders. And then you'll need to scan it in. Once you do that, then you should be able to load in, and it'll actually detect the plugins like Contact. So I'll open up instance of Contact here, and then I'm going to just load in, let's say, some flutes. So let's go to Woodwinds, and we'll add some Flutes Essentials. All right, now here's what's nice about the new features. You can copy this and then you can paste it. So I just right click to show you that, or in a quicker way then is to go here. You can do Control V, or excuse me, Control C and then Control V to copy and paste. Another cool trick is to go back here and just do Control D. Control D will duplicate a track, and you can make a few instances of these quickly. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a thing of flutes. I'm also going to create a thing of clarinets. I'm just going to drag and replace. Okay, I have clarinets, and then here, let's go to horns, and let's try some Metropolis Arc 1. And this is a key switch patch, so let's do some horns. Alright, and then over here, I'm clicking and dragging and replace, but you can also just start fresh that way. Let's also put some same grouping, but this time we'll do our trumpets. And last, let's try something from Jaeger. So Jaeger, and we'll do some trombones. Okay, so now if I go back, you'll see I have all these instruments loaded on this side. No sounds will be generated yet until I get it routed on Cubase. But before we do that, let's talk about some other things. We have the titles of everything over here on this side. So let's go ahead and put these in quickly. This is my horns. This is the trumpets. And this one is the trombones. Okay. Now we can also label the instance. So let's call this Woodwinds and Brass. Okay. If you like to organize ahead of time, you can go ahead and click on here. The new addition would be the system colors, and you can actually change the colors of everything to any color that you want. So if I want that pastel green, then you can do that now. You can also do the same for your instruments. So let's say within these family of instruments, I want all my woodwinds certain colors. So let's go back here, and we'll do green, and then let's say for my brass, let's do red. Okay, and that's good to have as you're going through your palette. So now I have these MIDI ports on the left hand, and then over here on the right hand side you have your MIDI channels. That's how that's ordered. What you're gonna do is you can keep the first ones on MIDI port 1. So I'll show you one way I would do it, and then I'm sure there are different ways to do this as well. Everyone has their own way of doing this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the ports for my woodwinds the same, and then over here I'm going to keep my ports for the brass different. So I can do that, or I can just highlight all of these, hold down shift and do that, so it selects all of the ports to 2, and then again I'm just going to change these over to 2 and change this one to 3. Okay, now you can do that, or you can do all if you want. There is a benefit to having this here if you want a quick reference and glance over. All would be good if, let's say, I added the instruments and down below contact. So let's say I wanted a thing of Tinagro cello and I wanted it on channel 2. I could do it like that too, but I prefer it separate. There's probably going to be some resource issues, one way or the other. And so whatever decision you go with, just do your research and see which one will work as far as optimizing your CPU. So going back to the subject here, I'm going to go ahead and change all of these accordingly. Now again, you can do all. I'm going to opt to do all for all of these actually. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go over on this side and we're going to connect the sounds. So let's go to this side of the page. Okay, so now I'm connected, and as you'll see, you have a Woodwinds and Brass instance loaded. So I'm going to connect there. Make sure that your buffer is set to at least one buffer if you can, because then that'll reduce any potential clicks and pops along the way. I also will recommend decoupling and for the meantime. And when you save a session, you can decouple or couple back on save it once, so it saves all the settings, but then you can decouple afterwards. Decouple will make sure that when you save your Cubase session, they stay compact and small. Let's go ahead and talk about the Vienna Ensemble Pro and how that would interface together inside of Cubase. So first thing is I have this loaded now. I have a MIDI channel, and then I have my physical stereo channel. The reason why I have it this way is because that's how it works. You can't do this anymore, so that is a trade-off. You can't do instrument track anymore. You have to do it the old-fashioned way, where there's a virtual MIDI port that connects into your stereo output. So let's go ahead and add these in. So I have flutes for my first channel, and this would be flutes as well for that output. In order to add more, the trick in Cubase is just to go to the side and activate outputs. And we're going to change all of these outputs. So for as many instruments I have flutes, clarinets, and then I have horns, trumpets, and trombones. So that's however many outputs I need. And I'm going to just rename these quickly. Horns, trumpets, and then I have trombones. And then over here, I'm also going to just duplicate these tracks, and let's change these accordingly. Clarinets, horns, trumpets, and trombones. Okay. All right, and I'm resetting this. You can go up to 16 for that MIDI port 1. So if you go over here and you do MIDI port 1, and also for clarinets, MIDI port 1, you can go up to 16 if you really wanted, and that would give you a lot of different possibilities. You can go up to 768 actually if you wanted, using all 48 MIDI ports. So then over to these three, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift and Out, or Shift and Command on Mac, and then go find the MIDI port 2, and now that's selected. Over on this end you have 2 and 3. Okay, so that's important to remember, because now we're going to go back and go to the Vienna Ensemble Pro side. And then here what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that all of these instruments, starting with the flutes, are matching the same outputs. So clarinets need to change to 2. Horns will stay the same because we're on a new MIDI port and it starts over, so we have MIDI channel 1 again. And then trumpets will change. Now trumpets will be 2, trombones will be 3. Oh, excuse me. There you go. There's 3. And then going to the one last section is the outputs. Now you have to match the outputs the same as Cubase. So this will be output 1 and 2. The next will be outputs 3 and 4. Then we have 5 and 6 for horns. Trumpets will be 7 and 8. And trombones will be 9 and 10. Let's go ahead and move back to the first window, and you can see now the sounds should reflect. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. Horns, trumpets, and trombones. Alright, so all of those worked out perfectly the way I planned, and now you can go on to strings and do another session, another instance if you want. So, you know, for instance, if I want to do strings, then I can do another instance here, and let's change the color to, let's say, orange. And rather than contact, let's do a synchron player. And I'm just going to show you some other features with the Vienna Ensemble Pro. So first off, you have the Epic Orchestra, and let's go ahead and open up something that's newer. So the first two is actually from the original Epic Orchestra, the 1.0 version. Now everything after that is version 2.0. And we're going to go to synchron strings, and let's do an all synchron strings. So let's just call this synchron strings all. Alright, and the same idea, I want to change this to all. You don't have to, but it's nice to have, and then you can duplicate if you want. And let's do one more. Let's do a thing of percussion. So the synchron percussion, and I'm going to change the port because it's a different family, and that's good to do. Let's change the outputs accordingly. So this will be outputs 3 and 4. This would be outputs 1 and 2. Now I can keep the outputs the same numbers, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, as the woodwind and brass, because they're actually from different instruments, so they will come out as separate ports when you go hook that up to the Cubase side. So that is the strings and percussion. So I might as well just call this strings and percussion. All right, and then well, let me just explain one thing about this. If you have two instances, what's going to happen is I will have my computer focused on dedicating 6 threads to the first instance, which is woodwinds brass, and then the 6 threads will be dedicated to strings and percussion. Now, depending on your computer, maybe you have more cores or less. However many threads that you want will stabilize your sounds and have them play the sounds more equally distributed, so to speak. So you can change these settings as well by going to your drop down and selecting that. Another thing that I should mention is your connection settings. You can go up to 48 MIDI ports, and then on your audio outputs, I would recommend setting it also to 48 outputs and inputs. But how it works here is 1 and 2 actually acts as a stereo output, so you have to multiply that by 2 to make it 96. Alright, now let's go back to my other page, and what I'm going to do now is let's go ahead and change this to woodwinds and brass. I'm going to add in another instance of Vienna Ensemble. Okay, and then this time we'll call this the strings and brass, or excuse me, strings and percussion. We'll connect that, and we'll connect that. Let's do one buffer again. We'll decouple. Alright, so my first one was strings, synchron, strings all. I'm just going to copy that and paste it into here. And let's do the same thing. Copy that, and then let's go ahead and duplicate this track. Alright, so now I have 1 and 2. Actually, you know what? It should be 1. MIDI channel 1. But what I'm going to do here is just check my port. So my MIDI port is connected to strings and percussion 1. And the percussion here will be strings and percussion, but 2. So have that. And the sound should be going out. Here's the strings. Okay, I also have to activate my output for my percussion, so I have 3 and 4 activated now, and this is my percussion. Okay, and oh, I see what happened. I need to go back here and select the percussion. So let's do bass drum. Actually, let's do this one instead. So there's 2 versions of this. Every instrument has this. So the first one is actually the velocity is depending on how hard you play with the keyboard, as opposed to this one where the velocity is now controlled by your mod wheel. So I can go as high or I can go low. I'll be quiet, and as no matter how hard I press on the keyboard, it will always stay there. So for percussion, I think it's good to do this one, and for everything else, it's up to you on how you like to work. So going back to that, I have that selected now, and let's go back to Cubase. I'm on my keyboard. You can see how that's routed to 3 and 4. Of course, you can also change that name accordingly. And all of a sudden, you have all of these outputs, and you can see how that would reflect on your mixer board. And that's all controlled inside of your DAW now. And then I also would want to mention the new feature here, the update, is when you go into your master bus for synchron players and any other VSL player like the Vienna Ensemble, it will tell you what the articulation is. So these are key switched instruments. So if I select the soft instead, let's get some sound going. Right now you can also see over here that has changed, and if I do flautando, you can see that has changed as well. So that's really neat. That does not work, unfortunately, with your third-party applications like Contact, since it's considered third-party in VSL's eyes. It doesn't have that integration. So that's one reason to maybe think about getting Vienna products or sound products like the Big Bang Orchestra or Synchron, just because of this handy feature, if you like that kind of thing. And then the last point that is worth mentioning is the automation panel. So let's go over to the automation mapping. I'm gonna make this smaller so that you can see these separate. Okay, so over here, what I like to mention is you can have your parameters learned now quickly, and it will tell you what they are, regardless of company. So if you're using Contact, you can do the exact same thing, like so. And so the Contact's attack can be modulated. You can also use your MIDI controller. So I'm going to use my fader board right here. And you can see on my fader board, I'm just going to be moving one of my dials, and this is a CC2, and you can see how that is now routed. It detected that, and let's say I wanted to change the flutes. Let's say the EQ setting. So if I go over here, turn on EQ, and let's just modulate that to the gain. So let's go ahead and do learn, and we're going to change this to the gain, and now I can use that to move the gain up and down. This works slightly differently than the Learn MIDI feature in Contact when you right-click something. It's just another workflow, and honestly, either one would work really well. It just depends on how you like to work. So you can do this in the automation panel now. What's new about this is it actually tells you what's available, and it gives you the exact read out of what it is before you had to type it in manually. So that's a really cool feature. Now, with that being said, Vienna Ensemble Pro, again, this is a staple for anyone who is working with huge amount of tracks and need to switch between sessions. This is a lifesaver. You know, it does take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes for me to load a huge template if I were to do it inside of Cubase. But if you just do it one time, load up your sounds, then you can go back and forth. Your file sizes for Cubase sessions will be much smaller. You know, and the save times will be much quicker. So there are a lot of benefits to that. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful for you today to give an overview, and also if this is something worthwhile of your time to get. I think it's very useful, again, for big projects. I use it on and off for things like feature films where I need to write, let's say, 20 cues, and within those 20 cues, they're all using the same instruments. That is a benefit and is such a lifesaver. So big shout out to Paul from VSL for giving me a chance to review this product. It's really great what they're doing, and I hope that they continue to make improvements down the road. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this. Also, smash the like button. And if you want to see more videos, subscribe to my channel. I will see you next time.